Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're back to ranking champions. Well, to be more specific, in this video we're back to ranking classes, and based on that we're going to be doing our next champion ranking videos. We're going to be doing our top 10s or top 15s. Let me know what you guys think in the this comment section. But I think for classes top 10 is still fine. If you really want, I can do top 15, but these videos are already quite long. Anyways, the point being is we're going to break down each class and more specifically how they relate to each other. Keep in mind that this is my own personal thoughts and opinions mixed with current game relevance and trends. In my class breakdown videos, I will not necessarily go on by a pure count of how many quote-unquote good champions there are or how many like fun and enjoyable champions there are. I'm going to be looking at more which champions of which classes are doing the most work, and which classes are kind of seemingly catching up to where they were or still are behind. And the first thing that I have to remind you guys is please do keep this civil in the comment section. We all have our own individual class rankings, and I know for a fact these will look wildly different because like maybe your favorite champion is in a different class that I ranked at the bottom or something. All that said, we have to start somewhere, right? And we're going to start with the old class rankings. And I must say these have shifted quite drastically because we had skill at the bottom. I think at that point, Mutant was still not thriving as it is now. We had tech in the middle, science number 3. Science used to be at the top, but clearly on the down. And then we have cosmic, and then we had mystic previously. Now, fair spoiler warning, these have changed quite drastically. And I personally believe that the weakest class right now, not by a massive margin, but I certainly do think that currently the least competitive class is skill. And it's not even that they have received, bad backup. I think Lumtrix is quite cool and fun champion. I wish he was doing a bit better than he is, but I really like and enjoy his design. The Elena, for instance, came in very loud and very heavy in the contest, and her defensive prowess definitely has slid down to where it was at the peak. Okoye is doing about as good as she ever has, but when we look at the class in its entirety, I can't say it has too much going on for it, and that you would be spoiled for choice in terms of which rank ups. There are kind of like the mandatory ones. There are a few breaths of fresh air that have been released, like Stealth Suit Spider-Man coming into the game. I think is a good boost to the skill class. But still, I do think they are at the bottom. They are at the bottom for a few specific reasons. Number one, not only the class that counters them the best, as in Mutant class, currently is popping, and that kind of naturally has basically retired a whole bunch of skilled defenders. It wasn't that long ago when, for instance, Korg and Killmonger and Atuma were kind of like BG defensive staples, right? And when they were Alliance War defensive staples and stuff. Well, they're just not anymore, right? Additionally, even the like new age defenders that were meant to come and supposedly replace them, for instance, Bullseye was a menace for like a solid year in the game. Right now, even as somebody who does have a rank for Bullseye, I don't main him in every meta, and he's not, the deadly assassin he once was, because, well, there are a lot of kick-ass mutant champions that can destroy him, and then additionally, there are more random champions that still destroy him. For instance, existence of Okoye has damaged his stock on defense, and Kushala, as it turns out in most metas, does him quite well on defense. And then there's like the next champion and another and another. Stark and Spider-Man, for instance, does him, and he just kind of has too many champs that do him well enough. And offensively, and this is like where he kind of has retained his value, because if you do combine Bullseye with any offensive attack modifiers, he's like a kick-ass attacker, and he's very versatile, and for a lot of challenge mode stuff, he can work. But that's not the norm either. That's like the meta merchant politics there. And Bullseye has definitely taken a drastic step back. And I already kind of mentioned it earlier. We do have Yelena, who came in quite loud. And she didn't have her year in the sunshine. She's already kind of like sliding down because again we have learned how to dex that level 2, making that fight significantly quicker. The class that counters Yelena, and Kabam effectively just released like 3 or 4 champions like every month in a row that absolutely annihilated Yelena, and then some random champions that weren't necessarily meant to annihilate Yelena, like Spider-Woman and Caroline Dean, and they destroy her. Okoye happens to destroy her. And that's where we are at. I think, with like few notable exceptions, Crossbones is thriving. I think Okoye is thriving. Nick Fury is still dependable and great. And obviously, Yelena still has presence, and the same Bullseye still has some presence, and Black Panther Civil War is kind of like popping off. But that's not a long list. It really isn't. And I'm sure somebody's gonna tell me like Elsa is awesome and Shield is awesome, and Jabari Panther is crazy, or something like that. The reality is these champions aren't like the top of the top champions. They're good, they're solid, they have place in the game, they do things. Like I have always said about Shield, I don't think she's bad, I don't think she's insanely amazing. I think there are places and times when she does amazing things under specific conditions, but in general, like on her own merits, I would not rank her as high as many of the other champions here. And the end result is, that there's a very short list of kind of like elite skill champions. Regardless of how much I like Okoye, I still think skill class is at the bottom of the barrel. And it's not because Kabam has kind of like something, in it for skill class. I don't think so, at least. I think it's just because they're better at designing mutants, and I think it's also because regardless of what champions Kabam kind of push in to help skill class recover, it just hasn't been enough. It really hasn't. And not the best state of affairs, because I love skill class, high crits, debuff, shrug, some cool dots. There's a lot in the class that you can enjoy. But from competitive standpoint, they haven't done the best. Additionally, like obviously we are getting Valkyrie as a 7-star very, very soon, but I'm not like super confident how good of a meta boost she will provide. Then again, from the previous events, they gave us like a buffed 7-star Nitro shirt that was a complete waste of time for everybody involved. What other benefits and boost skill classes like received recently? Again, it just is not that much going on. Like we have Frankencastle, who's not like an awful champion, but it doesn't necessarily stack up with the best champs of the year either. So that wasn't like a big benefit to them. So here we are. I like you guys, but skill class just can't really catch a break. Moving on to the next class, Science. And it's kind of a shame. It's kind of a shame because I love Science. Science class is my favorite class forever in the game. Like since this game started, basically, or at the very least after 12.0, since I started playing with Quake, okay? Since around that time, Science class has been my favorite class in the game because I always valued the idea that you have like a ton of versatility, not necessarily the biggest red numbers, but a ton of utility and ability to do many different fights and dots, and also to different ways of delivering damage, like powers, things like different dots. I like skill class, Science class a lot. My favorite class, but for a while, it's not necessarily just this year, but for a couple of years before that, they barely got anything from Kabam. Like every event, Kabam kind of screwed them over, or at the very least put them on the bottom half. As a great example, for instance, would be the Heart of Fire event, Mystic class got Tigra, Skill class got Nick Fury, Tech class got Fam, Science class got I-Bomb at that point, It wasn't necessarily as great. And then, we have some champions getting buffed, and then those buffs still kind of work out to be like, nah, okay. And Kabam also did Kabammed Science class out of position with the stuff they did with Titania. It's impossible to pretend that this hasn't had an impact. It absolutely has. Titania was like basically a top 10 champion in the game, or close to that, and she absolutely is not. She has fallen off the cliff because it's not even about the fact that you can't push opponent to 3 bars of power with your rotation. It's more so about the fact that whenever I activate my level 3, my opponent immediately throws their special attack, whether they are intimidated or not. They just don't care about it. It's like a placebo buff half the time. And, you know, Titania is just... I actually tried to use her a couple of days ago, and it was just sad. I used 3 level 3s, and 3 times my opponent threw a special in my face straight after my level 3, like without me landing a single heavy attack. Just ridiculous what Kabam did to our girl, the Butchers. Obviously, at the same time, Silk kind of caused it, but in theory, Silk should have remained very, very viable attacker. But Silk herself has taken a step back. Silk's nowhere near as relevant as she was at the peak of her powers, Silk Lock or not. It's just because she doesn't kind of happen to counter as many champions that you would want a meta champion to counter right now. Spider-Ham's still powerful, but again, he has taken a backseat to Jessica Drew, so, you know, we all are ranking up Spider-Woman, who God knows how good she's going to look, because right now she's the top 5 champion in the game, and the best science champion in the game, but even she's going to get made worse. And maybe that's going to bring a bit more of Spider-Ham back, but he's kind of like on the down low. Then we had like last year's Glorious Guardians who went, where other classes got Sentinel and Black Panther Civil War and Deadpool X-Force, and legitimate top 10 champions in their class. Science class got Sentry. They got like nothing from that. And yeah, like some of the latest releases as well. High Evo objectively is just a disappointment as well. Like, he's the worst 5 out of 5 defender in the game. There are some metas where he's half decent and good defender for now. And then there are some metas where he just gets run over by every street dog. And offensively, he's, yeah, fairly garbage still. And, yeah. Like, again, we can filter out the 2025 champions, and, you know, High Evo is just the worst 5 out of 5 defender in the game. Then we have Science Falcon, the worst champion of the year, because, again, I will repeat this. You see all this text? Don't be fooled by it. He has no abilities. He has slow, and that's it. He basically doesn't do anything else. And he's getting a tune-up, but I have like 0 expectations of that tune-up. Now we can take a look at, obviously, Spider-Woman being like a massive, massive buff for them, and Lizard as well at the same time. You know, Lizard's not bad, for sure, but I don't think he's like the class-saving type of champion either. So this is where we stand. And you'd think that skill class not doing as well would kind of mean that science class kind of gets a breather, but they really, really don't, because the skill champions that do work, like Crossbones and Okoye and a few others, completely annihilate any semblance of the defense that science class could, again, put together. And science class in general right now only has 2 super relevant champions, as in 2 champions that you'd classify them as the top tier. The same tier you would classify, you know, Okoye and Nick Fury and Crossbones and stuff like that. The ones that, you know, are kind of like everywhere and constantly featured and constantly used. Science class right now only has Spider-Woman and Photon. Photon's defensive threat also has been obviously mitigated quite drastically, largely again due to the fact that outside of class field champions just now kind of like managed to be quite serviceable counters, like Starhand Spider-Man, for example, and so on. So I like Science Class, man, but they are not doing the best. Science Class got Sensor Torch. That was like big, but it hasn't been like big enough. Obviously, he's in like top 5, top 8 Science Champions right now, but he hasn't had the meta defying kind of like return that, you know, you could have hoped. He's definitely a very good Science Champion, but it's not like he's completely dominating the game. And then we have champions like Nefaria, who I absolutely love, especially in specific situations. He's insane. And at the same time, you know, he's not breaking in the top of the top. He's like the second tier from the top, but not quite out there. I really do like Count Nefaria, but I like the fact that he can do a ton of non-standard matchups, like not quite as fast. And here's going to be like a good comparison as well. We do have Count Nefaria, and Count Nefaria, for instance, can do Dark Phoenix reasonably well. But at the same time, like, there's like a random Okoye that does it better. And then there's Count Nefaria that can do like Serpent reasonably well, but it is quite slow on the slower side, right? And then he can do, I don't know, Cambridge quite well, but again, not quite as well as you would like to. In general, he's an excellent champion to invest for overall versatility and utility around the game, and Alliance War as well. But I love him. He's great, but he's just a bit on the slower side for him to be like up there. And the use and the popularity, similarly to skill class, entirely effectively depends on the metas. Because obviously there are some situations when Kabam puts on like a massive region node, when we like to turn to the science node and then we main our anti-venoms leaders and whatnot. But other than that, like I had fairly big hopes for anti-venom. He's not doing as well as I would have hoped. Still a great champion. Love to use him. He's not that guy. From that class, Kull was the guy. He's not that guy. And that's where we are with the science class. It's not that they're not getting anything either from Kabam, but number one, like Kabam always had the problem with science class. If you take a look at every year, half of the champions they release in science class are bad. Like, or just like not as successful. Like here, Deathless She-Hulk, aside from like abreast content and now Coliseum, she doesn't have like big competitive game relevance. And Spider-Punk, very kind of select specific circumstance. Take a look at 2023 champions, and you're going to see the same thing. Like you have Cassie, which was very, very good for a while, and we have recently got her back. Still need to see her impact in the game. But then there's Morbius. There's Photon, who's great. Then there's Sandman. They always kind of like do one bad, one good science champion, and that's a trend that I have noticed where for many other classes they can like push out 3 bangers in a row, but for science class they barely ever do that. Right. So ultimately, I do think science class right now is second weakest class in the game, because again, I do think they have 2 shining champions that are still very relevant and great in the game, which would be the Photon and Spider-Woman. And outside of those 2, I think just about everything else is fairly situational, fairly conditional. It's not like a staple just about anywhere. Again, many of those are very good champions to have, like, Leader and Counterferia, for instance, because they are best or very, very good at what they do in specific situations. But again, on an even playing field, they do not kind of represent the same power level many of the other champs do. Moving on to spot number 3. So the third ranking video is going to be in tech class. And I hated to rank tech solo. I really, really did. And there's one very big good reason / argument why I did. And it's not because I hate Bastion, because I don't. Bastion is a very good Alliance War champion. The reason is I feel as if though tech class is one of the highest floors, as in almost everything released, is to some degree relevant. All 4 of these champions you can see getting utilized here and there. For instance, that's this year. And then we're going to take a look at the last year. All of these champions, Deathless Vision doesn't count, but, Riri Williams, Arcade, Jack, Prowler, all of them are also solid. All of them have had some game presence, and we do use them for things and stuff like that. And then there's like 2023 champions, and again, same things. Like I think all of those champions are, maybe with the exception of Lady Deathstrike, but even Lady Deathstrike had placed like in Alliance War and a few other bits. But Shocker, Revision, Fant, all of these champions are decent, good. So why can't they rank up any higher? Well, the answer is very simple actually, because while they have like some of the highest floor in the class, as in like they have like 20 good champions in that class, they have the lowest ceiling of every class. Every other class has a better champion than the top tech champion. I'll put it like that. Like in every class, like if I have to pick like one rank up gem to rank 5 that I don't want to get, that's definitely tech class. Like skill class, like Okoye, no brainer, is like awesome. Some people will go cross zones. For me, it'd be like Okoye. Some would pick Nick Fury. I'd argue that like all 3 of those choices are better than what we're offered here. Maybe not, but fair enough. Science class, Spider-Man Photon, immediately, much rather rank up than anything in tech class. and we'd go with like Mystic class, that'd be like 3-4 champions. I'd much rather rank up than just about anything in this class. And the same thing for every other class. Like they just don't have their superstar champions. They really don't. They have like a very, very good wide roster of role players. Like Fam is great, but he's not that great. Like, you know, some people really, really love Bastion. It's like, is he on the level with like Onslaught or Serpent or Spider Woman stuff? No, he just isn't. Same thing for Guardian. And again, but they have such a large amount of good champions like Fam, Arcade, Zola, Bastion, all good. So that's like 4. Guardian, good. Ironheart, good. That's like 6 now. Then you have Hulkbuster, you could argue with fair enough, 7. 8 with Jack. Nimrod's about to be there. 9, Omega Sentinel. 10, Penny. 11, Shuri, Shocker, Sentinel. 12, 13, 14, Red Skull. 15, Prowler. 16, Solark. 17, Starkey. 18, you know, Warlock, Yondu, Weird Vision, all of them are quite decent. Like, the closest thing they had superstar is Starkey, I'd say. But still, holy shit, does that mean I think Starkey is like the best deck champion now? I genuinely could, maybe, I don't know. But again, and I love a lot of these champions, and I rank a lot of these champions. Unlike Tech Class, for instance, for me, is falling behind in rankings. I do have the Shocker ranked up, and I do want to rank up my Sentinel. I have the Starkey ranked up, and so on. It is a good class. They just don't have the... I'd argue they don't have anybody in top 10 in the game. Probably not even in top 15. Maybe in top 15, but... they just don't have their superstars. That's it. They are a squad of elite role players with no leading champs. Next up, Mystic. I do think Mystic is a very, very strong class. But Mystic's weaknesses are kind of becoming relevant and exposed now as well. Because, for instance, with Science class not doing as great as it once was, part of the reason is because there's no like desperate need to use Science champions because Mystic don't have defense. There are 2 relevant Mystic defenders in the game right now. And that's it. They have 2 champions that do half decent on defense now, which is Kindred and Nico. You know, Kindred, who's made a comeback, and Kindred's made a comeback entirely because of Kabam's fuckery. Like, man, I have to call this bullshit out. When Kindred came out, he was 10 times easier to fight than he is right now, only because Kabam are wankers. And they have like reduced the reaction times to a point where it's pitch perfect, and you're not guaranteed to be able to punish his like level 1 and stuff like that. Unless you are like phasing through his specials with Tiger or something, you're genuinely not guaranteed that punish because he can parry you or he can dex out of it or anything. And that's entirely down to Kabam being dickheads and messing with recovery times and things like that. So Kindred's all of a sudden a much more relevant defender, and he's a bit of a menace again, and he's quite scary now. And besides Kindred, we also have Nico still being a relevant defender because of her like special spamming and, you know, demanding a poison immune champion on it. So Nico is a relevant dual threat champion. And that's it, because even Enchantress, like that we consider to be like an absolute nightmare of a champion for a while, she really isn't that big of a problem anymore. Unless there are some mega power gain nodes or something of the sort, people generally just nuke through her. And she has lost a ton of her defensive impact. So, you know, you can count in Enchantress as maybe the 3rd. I don't anymore because, again, she's scary like 1 in 10 metas. But for most part, that is it. Like, all the Rintras, Sasquatches, Sassies, Mangogs, you know, all the like thick boy squad that used to dominate the defensive game are completely irrelevant today because just about every class runs through them. And with that, Mystic class is kind of in the shitter right now because all of the top champions in the Mystic class are offensive ones. Like, they really are. And I love a lot of those champions, but there's just... I think Mystic class is extremely unbalanced. They're, like, way too offensively focused. Like, look at their top champions. Kushala is, like, offensive only, basically. Nico, okay, is the one dual threat that they have. Shatra is offensive only, basically. Pavitra is basically an attacker. I think Kabam gave him, like, 2 on defense. Tiger is basically offensive only. Like, Hood offensive only. You have like, I don't know, White Tiger's attack only. Wolfie is basically attack only. So they have Jack's attack only. They have, again, very, very, very little to offer in terms of defense. And even now, like that, we're gonna get the Banquet event, Thorgen Foster buff. That's a uniquely offensive buff too. Like here, like Nico is like the one dual purpose champion that I have, and like both, like Dracula is just bad, which is very sad because I like the champion. I like the character and the champion. I actually like his kit. Just wish it was better. But he's not a defender. He's not a defender. Nico, again, kind of is. And that, I think, kind of hurts the class. Again, Enchantress is a defender, but as we covered, has been kind of cracked since. Isophane, not a defender. Shatter, not a defender. Spiral, not a defender. White Tiger, not a defender. Destroyer, situationally good defender. I did end up taking him to rank 3 for like specific matters, right, where you have to intercept or opponent gets a ton of buffs or something like that. But he's not like, again, the threat that he once was. So I do think Mystic is great. I do think Mystic has beefed up considerably, but only offensively, which has made them less kind of like balanced in the game as a whole. So I really like Mystic class. I do think that arguably one of the more versatile classes, offensively speaking. But there's just a criminal lack of defense. Moving on, class number 2 right now, I think is Cosmic. I think Cosmic's super strong. Like the Cosmic had, I think what's the best way to put it? I think Cosmic has enough of everything to be like one of the best classes right now in the game. The champion side in the last few years, obviously, we have Serpent, Deathless Thanos, and Dark Phoenix. That's kind of like the trio of like defensive nightmare. But again, as we have discovered with Deathless Thanos, like he's equally effective in battlegrounds and attack and everywhere in the game. Serpent's one of the best offensive champions outside of battlegrounds. Dark Phoenix is also actually like incredibly good offensively outside of battlegrounds. And then, so they have been steadily getting kind of like defensive reinforcements. Some of them are past, the scariest, or just about all of them, to be honest. Like Serpent, Dark Phoenix, Deathless Thanos. All 3 of these champions now have plenty of counters because Mystic has got their offensive beef going on. But the fact that, they do have usage just about everywhere makes them incredibly valuable. And now we have the new age of Imperiosa that's coming, that also seems to be a fairly promising defender and an attacker, so a dual-purpose champion. Carolina is just like an amazing kind of like buff to the Cosmic offensive capabilities. And as in whole, like if I made this video like a couple months ago, like 2-3 months ago, I think I would put Cosmic in number 1 most likely. But Mystic class has banged them up a bit too good. Even though I do rate Mystic class, again, for reasons that I just explained, slightly below Cosmic class. But I think defensively, because for a while, Cosmic class dominated the defense in the game. In between Dark, like, you just draft a whole bunch of specific Cosmic defenders and, like, you were very likely to win. And now it's not as much. But at the same time, they do have the Cull that's, been nuking things left and right and center. Hyperion is going through his second renaissance. So Hyperion has been doing well. We got Sensor Galen, who I think has aged amazingly. And again, his ability to go out of the class wheel and do cross-class matchups and under specific circumstances, I think Galen is like a menace. Null has not gone anywhere and has been showing himself from the best side. You can still see Noah here and there. Obviously, we have Venom that's absolutely tearing through things. And yeah, I think they do have enough of an offensive presence, definitely still relevant enough defensive presence. Hence, I'm putting them in spot number 2. If it wouldn't, again, if Serpent and Dark Phoenix and Thanos were as scary as they were upon the time when they were released on the defense, Cosmic class would be the top class for sure. The reality is, again, like, they're not that dominant anymore. They're still capable defenders, they're just not that dominant as they once were on defense. Hence, I have them in spot number 2. Spot number 1, I have to give it to Mutants. At this point, you just have to give it to the mutants. Because I do think that the best balanced class, where they have like a ton of great attackers, defenders, and dual purpose champions. And what made me realize that how good of mutant class is when X23 buff got announced, everybody is super hype about the footage. Now, I still have yet to make my thoughts and opinions fully about X23, but the point being is, I was thinking where I would rank X23 in mutant class. Would I rank her up immediately? Why would I? Why wouldn't I? And I was like thinking in my head. So, if X23 can do all the matchups she has to do, does them well, and has a great damage output, and you know, in theory, if the buff went live and she was the perfect mutant nuke, would I be guaranteed to take her to rank 4? Would I be guaranteed to put her in my deck? And I just realized no. Like, because I think Deadpool currently is the best mutant nuke. And even he doesn't have a guaranteed spot in my or most of the other players, kind of like, you know, C5 and C4 decks. And the reason for it is because in mutant class, there's not that good of a reason to compromise for a bit of speed when you have champions like Onslaught, who is perfectly capable attacker and defender and does like a bajillion matchups. And you have Mr. Sinister, again, defender and, you know, quite capable offensively. You have Jean Grey, again, amazing dual threat champion. And then even the champions that follow that, like we have Captain Britain. Obviously, I would say she's probably currently the nastiest defender in the game. If I would have to give a defensive ranking, right now I'd probably give peak to Captain Britain, most likely. And she's also quite decent on attack, especially now the special 3 skip. Cassandra, no, is also defense and attack, maybe not like quite as fast, but she's quite capable in both under specific circumstances. Even Domino is capable of throwing it down and, you know, holding the fort. And then on top of that, we have Gentle, who's also capable of doing both very well. And Havoc has got a bit of a comeback. He's also like absolutely a dual purpose champion. So looking at the mutants, I think Kabam just kind of got a bit carried away designing them great for both attack and defense. And I think that gives an insane amount of power to the class. It really, really does, to a point where if a champion is like a decent or good defender only, like you don't even look at it. Or if a champion is a great attacker, you also probably will not really look at it. And that's a testament to the power of the class. It's also like one of the reasons why skill classes at the bottom and can't get back up is because mutant class has retired all their defensive lineup. Because with the other classes, often enough, for instance, like as a great example here would be, you can't draft any Mystic to kill Dark Phoenix. There's still a whole bunch of them that doesn't do that fight well. But you can't draft any Mystic to do Serpent fast, for instance. You know, Hood will not do it fast. And there's kind of like this pick and choose where there's very few champions in the Mystic class that destroy all of the Cosmic class. You could say that there's like Nico and something. But in general, there's kind of like, you still need to do some of mix and match, right? And the same thing goes for, I don't know, skill class against science champions. Not every good skill attacker is going to destroy all science defenders. And Okoye is like the best skill attacker, like throw a thing down and nothing's going to happen there, right? Or like Mantis is against Thing and so on. But with mutants, it's basically like that. Like whatever you see, skill class throws on defense, like any mutant is just going to basically obliterate it. And that's kind of scary levels of class suppression, which hence skill class can't recover defensively. Hence mutants are doing a fantastic job there. And then obviously they do good enough of a job going outside of the class field and having like these different matchups where you just know that, you know, the mutants will do well enough and work too. There's added bits of utility, for instance, like Deadpool X first one. You know, he's got his bleed do buffs and he can do bleed immunes, and that's like added extra bit there. And yeah, So I think currently mutants are the best ones. It might not be the deepest one. Again, as I said, genuinely, I think the deepest class of quote-unquote good champions is tech class. They're just missing their superstars. And again, like, what I mean by superstars is, like, mutants have the Jean Grey, the Mr. Sinister, the Onslaught. I think de facto 3 best, on Captain Britain, 4 best mutant champions in game right now. You know, Cosmics have Deathless Thanos, Dark Phoenix, Serpent, and Carolina. Like, 4 kind of, like, top champions. Mystics, again, have, like, the Nico, the Kushala, I'd argue the Tigra as well, that are, like, insanely good. And Tech just doesn't. And they have good champions. Nothing to that level. So that is how I currently see the class relationships. Here you can see the new class rankings. Hope you can enjoy the video. That also, however, means that the first class ranking video is going to be skill. Top 10, top 15, to be determined. Probably top 10. See you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about